Hi, everyone. I'm Riccardo. I'm a software engineer in the React team at Meta. And wow, it's amazing to be here, React Conf, all amazing people. I'm very excited, almost speechless, which is not great for me right now, but let's get it started. So I want to talk about new capabilities that we are pushing to the React Native core to let you bring all the features that you learned about React yesterday into your native application. And I really cannot talk about new feature without mentioning the new architecture. Let me borrow the words of my colleague, Riccardo, from React Conf 2021 to describe what the new architecture is. It is basically a rewrite of the internals of React Native to make it synchronous so that we can use concurrent feature in React Native. So let's have a look together at how a React Native application works under the hoods. So in any React Native application, we have a native layer that is used by the system to render platform-specific UI components and let your user interact with your application, and the JavaScript layer that you use to describe your UI and implement your application logic. What you want for these two layers is to communicate with each other, of course. And this is possible thanks to a component that is called the bridge. The bridge lets messages in JSON flow from one side to the other and back. But as you may guess, using JSON requires them to be serialized and deserialized. And this can take time and potentially block your UI. And of course, this is a bad thing. We don't want that. And to avoid this, we had to make React Native asynchronous. This is the old architecture. Let's have a look at how the new architecture works instead. Of course, we still have the two layers, right? We want to render components, and we need to write our logic and UI. And they have to communicate. We basically replaced the bridge with another concept, which is called JSI, or JavaScript Interface. Thanks to JSI, we don't communicate with message passaging anymore, but we use memory sharing. So the native layer and the JavaScript layer are sharing memory to communicate. This is, of course, much faster and efficient than before, and this basically let the JavaScript layer run synchronously with the native layer. So the new architecture is not just a rewrite, of course. It enables much more capabilities that you can use directly in your application. Let's start with one that I already mentioned, which is JSI. So what I'm about to show now is something that with the old architecture was not possible to implement properly. We tried a couple of times. The CPU was skyrocketing, the device was overheating, and the result was, well, not great. So have a look at this video. This is React Native Vision Camera. And I want you to focus on the fact that we are running face detection algorithm and face blurring at the same time on device, and look how it sticks, the blur sticks to the face. I mean, it's amazing. And again, thanks to Margello for developing this amazing library. It's the same that Nico showed you before, but let's focus on the blur here. The other feature that the new architecture enables are concurrent React APIs. At the end of the day, we were developing the new architecture to let you use those, right? So let's have a look at one of those examples. Use layout effect. In the old architecture, if, for example, you want to render a tooltip, which is anchored to another view, the anchor in this case is the red box, we need at least two rendering passes. One to render the red box and get all the layout information, and the second to use those information to render the tooltip. It's not great, right? With the new architecture and concurrent React APIs, we can use the layout effect and get all this information right before the rendering phase, so we can render everything at the same time, and the result is much better and what probably you were expecting. So we first open the usage of the new architecture in React Native 0.68 a couple of years ago. At that time, it was in an experimental phase, and it was hidden behind a feature flag or an opt-in flag. We did that to let you try it out in your application and report feedbacks. And we took your feedback very seriously. One of the feedback that we received the most was that migrating to the new architecture, whether you were developing a library or you're actually up, it was taking a lot of effort and a lot of code changes. So in the next few months, we are working on basically two features. One is bringing back some API that you were using in the old architecture to the new architecture so that you can start adopting the new architecture without changing any line of code, and several interoperability layers to let your legacy modules and legacy components run smoothly in the new architecture, again, without changing a single line of code. And of course, we didn't stop there. We collaborated with several partners, for example, with Expo, to try out all the Expo modules in SDK 51. And thanks to that experience, we will be able to push fixes in the core so that all the Expo modules in 51 are working smoothly in the new architecture, and you don't have to change a single line of code. This work was when it went really well, and Expo is calling out instruction on the release blog on how to try the new architecture in your application and how to report things that may not be working. Expo was not the only partner we worked together with. We work with Software Mention, CallStack, and other independent maintainers to try out their libraries in the new architecture and push further fixes in core to make sure that every one of you, after React Conf, can go back home and try their application with the new architecture turned on. And that's why I'm very excited and very proud of the team today to announce that we are considering the React Native new architecture officially in beta. So, again, when you go back home and after the conference, you can spin up your application, move it to 74, and if you are using mainly Android, you can turn on the new architecture, modifying the new arc-enabled flag on the Gradle.properties file. And for iOS, you can run polystall with the RCT new arc-enabled flag set to true. If you're using Expo, migrate to SDK 51, and then you can use the Expo build properties config plugin to turn on the new architecture for both iOS and Android. For more information, this is the link with the announcement, so check it out in the working group. And now, to talk about